The NFL Combine or the Underwear Olympics, whatever you want to call them these days, are underway in Indianapolis, Indiana, and the Bears have plenty of brass there to see who they might be selecting with their draft picks. One first rounder and two second rounders, and a few other picks on top of that. Zack was there to see it all, and we're here to break it all down. Welcome on in to the Bear Report podcast. Zack, how was Indianapolis?
It's a great time. It was fun. I get a little burnt out, so I don't stay the full week. But yeah, it was, it's a good time. It should always stay in Indianapolis. Obviously the workouts and the drills are going on today through Sunday. So yeah, it's a great time. I highly recommend if anyone can get out there, try to, even like if you're a fan, like you can just, enjoy the nightlife out there or something like that during the combine. It's a great time. And we learned some things about the Bears too. Some good news and maybe, something that was a little bit of bad news today.
Yeah, not the greatest news that we got today, and we'll get to that in just a quick second. But obviously, with the way that the combine works, and the coaches taking up with the podium, they're going through all their media, shaking hands, kissing babies, and everything else that goes along with it. Ben Johnson with a lot of wise words this week, talking about where the Bears are at as a team and what they need to look at, and really a lot of gems specifically around the offensive line. Very much highlighting that, and I think a lot of Bears fans could say the same thing. Obviously, hey, the Bears need some offensive linemen. And it seems as though if they don't take one round one, depending on who falls to them, they're probably going to be coming out of the draft with numerous offensive linemen.
Not only that, but they got to sign someone in free agency, right? Like they got to go after a big splash in free agency. Do they stick with Coleman Shelton at center? It looks like Tevin Jenkins is on his way out. Didn't really seem like he wanted to be here anymore. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting listening to Ben Johnson because, he was asked specifically, do you think you can fix the offensive line in one offseason? He's, pretty much said, yeah, I think it can be done. It's done before. He even said there's a number of teams last year that did it. And I think he mentioned, I think it was Carolina, the Panthers were a team that went out and spent Carolina a lot. They got a couple guards, changed their offense. So, yeah, I mean, that's good. He was asked about what he wants in an offensive line, and he kind of combined the answer with Dennis Allen on the defense and said, we want a physical group, not only on offense and only on defense. And I kind of like that. I feel like the physicality has been missing. Outside of like Tevin Jenkins and Darnell Wright, Tevin Jenkins battling injuries, kind of don't have like that mean, like tough-nosed, like kind of badass on the offensive line. They got to find some of those guys. Same with the defensive line too, like aggressive, physical. I kind of tying it to it. I thought it was interesting what he said, kind of build it from the ground up, go back to fundamentals, go back to the basics of things. Being around this team, seeing this team, I mean, you've seen, during games, they like, how many times have you seen a replay and the technique is wrong from a tackle or a guard that's like, lets a defender blow by, or how many times you've seen a penalty that's extended a drive for the other team or set your own team back. So like they do got to go back to the fundamentals, got to go back to the basics, but also how they're going to construct this offensive line, what they want in their players. Very happy with Ben Johnson's answers in those situations.
It really has been a breath of fresh air listening to him talk about what this team specifically needs. And, it's funny how everything just kind of came together this week as far as where the regime was at before Ben Johnson was brought in and everything that is now in motion for the draft, for free agency. The Bears obviously getting the lowest grade when it comes to coaching out of the NFLPA surveys this week, which that was no bueno. That somehow they still managed to barely hang in the top half of the league, even despite that. But again, there were some very interesting things specifically to the offensive line that kind of piqued my interest. Where like you said, he said that it was possible to get it to be flipped in a year. But he also mentioned that doesn't necessarily mean you have to go out and find 3, 4, 5 guys that, maybe it takes one or two to kind of change and build around, what you have in place. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I kind of understand that you need that leader to kind of take the
Yeah.
rest of the group and get them set and get that mindset in place. But the fact of the matter is they need four offensive linemen in a perfect scenario here, right? That's
Yeah.
all there is
Well,
to it. The
Ryan
entire interior line.
Ryan Poles, said there's going to be competition. They want competition at left tackle. He was asked specifically about Braxton Jones, and he said he's progressing well. Everything's on time, but there's going to be competition. Now, where's that competition? At 10, do you take Kelvin Banks? Do you take Josh Simmons? Josh Simmons is kind of interesting to me. If you're going to go offensive lineman, the Ohio State tackle got hurt in the Oregon game, the first Oregon game, this entire rest of the season. That was like October 12th, 11th, 10th. That
Yeah.
was, early in the season. And, being at the combine, you get to talk to not only like other NFL beat reporters, there's a lot of college guys there. I talked to a few people around Ohio State because I saw, Tuesday morning, I woke up, I saw, oh, wow, Mel Kiper's got Josh Simmons going to the Bears at number 10, the second offensive lineman off the board behind Will Campbell. I was kind of curious, and people said, like, if he wasn't hurt, he's probably the top. He's the top tackle, but he's probably the top offensive lineman. But he's hurt. He's been hurt. So the medicals you have to kind of clear and all that. Will Campbell's kind of the interesting one to me. Where does he project at the next level? Is he, your tackle? Is he a guard? I mean,
Yeah, I mean the arm length with Campbell is definitely something that's going to be scrutinized leading all the way up to that first round.
yeah,
It's interesting to see the divide between folks who think he's going to be no doubt drafted in the top 5 or 6, and then there's the other camp that thinks he's going to fall. There's a lot of people that still even have him being projected to the Bears at 10.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if that's possible because, in all honesty, it's kind of a weak draft class in other aspects.
Well, did you hear what
And I
Adam
mean,
Schefter said? I don't mean to cut you off, but did you hear what he said? He was on,
no,
I think he was on McAfee, and he said that a guy you'll get at 10, you can get at 35 or 30 in this draft. He said it's top heavy at the first couple, and the rest is just kind
yeah.
of, yeah.
I mean, it sucks. I mean,
Not as
there's
strong,
nothing else
yeah.
to it. Yeah, and in that regard, one of the other difficult things about this is because we spend all this time talking about the offensive line. There's also a lot of talk about the defensive line and getting those pass rushers and finding somebody opposite Montez Sweat. And one of the other big interesting stories that came out today, and I think this is honestly going to play to the players' advantage, which we really don't see all too often because of that top heaviness that we're seeing. Abdul Carter coming out and saying he might have to have surgery, might have to get a screw inserted in his foot. Maybe he can play through it. Maybe he'll just do the pro day. He'll be fine. They're still talking through it. But from a medical perspective, we're talking about arguably the top player in
Yeah.
the 2025 NFL draft, and just how concerning that could potentially be to teams if there might not be that long of a career for Carter in the NFL. But because there are so few top tier players, I don't think you're going to see a monumental fall like you would
No.
see in other years with guys with similar concerns, which is wild because I think really once you get past probably Mason Graham, Will Johnson, somewhere in that 5-6 range, like that's it. Like
Yeah.
you're up for a crapshoot.
Yeah. It's a lot of guys with potential high upside, raw talent, but not, like Will Anderson a couple of years ago, you knew like, okay, that guy was going top 2, top 3. You knew last year with a couple of guys outside the quarterbacks. Was it Joe Alt from Notre Dame he was going to go right there. This year, like you said, man, it's tough because like I don't see Carter falling past 5. Like that just
No.
would not make sense to me. Mason Graham is a kid that looks like he could be a game changer, but he's not going to last till 10. And then you're starting to talk about guys, you look at Michael Williams, He had an interesting comment about the Bears and loved polls and meeting with them already. You have James Pierce Jr., who is high upside guy, a lot of talent there. Still some questions. You have Mike Green, who a lot
Small
of
school
people,
guy.
yeah, a lot of people think he could be a top 10 pick. He's also got there's allegations and rumors going around on social media with him. The one today, the kid today, Shamir Stewart, the defensive end prospect at Texas A&M. I think he got a perfect RAS score today from his drills and what he was doing, measurements, the vertical, the broad jump, the 40 to 20-yard splits. He's a guy that's got a lot of upside, He's just so raw, though. And the college production's not there. I think he had 5 total sacks in college.
Four and a
Or something
half,
like
not even
4.5.
Yeah.
It's like, but here's the thing, man. A lot of these guys on the defensive side of the football that we just mentioned, Michael Williams, James Pierce Jr., Stewart, Mike Green, a lot of these guys feel like Ryan Poles picks, like looking for that athleticism,
They
looking,
do.
because
Yeah.
let's be honest, last year, taking Kieran Amagaji out of Yale, that's a luxury pick. You know what I mean? That's a luxury pick that the Bears really couldn't afford. Taking Torrey Taylor, that was more of a luxury pick at the time. Like that's a pick some of the Chiefs, something like that do. Ryan Poles likes luxury picks. He likes to kind of, or thinks he has luxury picks. He likes the athleticism. He likes the RAS. There's that stat that like the Bears have drafted the most RAS, like top RAS players since like 2019 or 18 or something crazy like that. Not all of them panned out, but yeah, it just kind of feels like those are Ryan Poles picks, but they got 4 picks to the top 100. I think pick 10 has to be offensive line or defensive line. One of their 2 second-round picks that are within 3 picks of each other has to be offense or defensive line. I wouldn't be upset if another one was, let's say, a running back or a safety or a corner. I could understand it. Tight end, something like that. But, I feel like you have to come out with those top 100 4 picks. You have to come out with 3 guys in the trenches. Unless you really like Fashion Gentney's there and you really think he is a Saquon Barkley, he's a generational guy. I don't think so. I think you could get Caleb Johnson. I think you get Amarian Hampton, Quinshon Junkins. I think you get a couple of those guys in the 2nd, 3rd round that, would fit your offense better. But
Yeah,
we'll see, man.
And there's a lot of connections that are happening right now with the Bears and Caleb Johnson in the 2nd round. Primarily because the Bears' new offensive coordinator having some Iowa connections as well, which obviously is easy to push there. It's just I don't really see any opportunity that Genty gets there at 10, even if he is available. I would be stunned. I there's not a scenario, especially now in free agency, and we'll get to that in a second, where the Bears can feel comfortable enough to say, you know what, we can afford to spend a premium pick on a position where we're already paying quite a bit of money to somebody in DeAndre Swift, and finding someone that is going to be that, thunder to the lightning that we have when there are clear needs elsewhere. And again, we've talked about this from Ryan Poles in the past, that there's been a bit of neglect to these positions that are now a major focus. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think that with being lockstep with Ben Johnson, you're going to see a much clearer idea of, okay, this is what we need. This is clearly the problem. I mean, the sack numbers, you can argue that a lot of them were on Caleb, but beyond that, there were still a lot that were on the offensive line. You got to get that figured out. You got to pressure the quarterback. Ben Johnson even mentioned that a little bit this week as well, as there's different ways to pressure the quarterback and to cause disruption. And you need to do it with the right personnel in place. And it sure sounded like they did not have the right personnel in place as of now on this roster. And so it's just nice that there's not a ton of beating around the bush to bring up, okay, we'll think of everything and we'll take best player available. It's like, no, reality check time. Go out and get the players that caused the issues that
Yeah.
you had throughout the season.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I do think there is a crop of players there that would at least make, let's say, Ryan Poles think about doing that again. Like think about not addressing the offensive line or defensive line. Unless, let's say this. Let's say there's a scenario they trade for Myles Garrett, solve the pass rush issue. Let's say you go get Dahlman from Atlanta. You got a center. You get Will Fries or something from Indianapolis. You get two offensive linemen. Let's say, Michigan's Will Johnson falls, another defensive back. Is there a scenario? Does Dennis Allen pound the table and say, look, this guy with Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon, we have 3 all-pro potential defensive backs. The other guy, like a lot of people are talking about, Tyler Warren. I mean, I feel like that's kind of recency bias, though, and nothing against Tyler Warren. I think he's going to be a fantastic player. But like people bring up Brock Bowers. Like,
oh, no.
Brock Bowers was way
There's
better.
No Brock Bowers in this class.
No, Brock Bowers was way better in college. Brock Bowers, people were talking about Brock Bowers being a legit wide receiver only in the NFL, not even tight end. And he did both. They lined him up different spots. But I don't see it with Tyler Warren at 10. I'd be shocked. But he's a guy, if he's sitting there at 10 and they really like him, and Ben Johnson's like, well, I need another dynamic tight end for our offense. I don't know. I can see those scenarios kind of playing out. I would agree with you, though. I think you got to go offensive line or defensive line. Like, even if let's say you trade for Myles Garrett and you can get someone like Stewart or, Michael Williams or James Pierce Jr., like, that's kind of the rule I live by. You can never have enough edge rushers. You can never have enough offensive linemen that can play. You need, I mean, look at Philadelphia, man. They were throwing 5, 6, 7 guys. I mean, they
didn't even have to blitz, though, in the Super Bowl. I mean,
no, they had game records that they were just rotating in and out. Excuse me. So yeah, I think the Bears are going to play it safe this year, quote unquote safe. But you have to hope, like, let's hope a Will Campbell falls. Let's hope Genty goes in the top 10. If Genty goes in the top 10, it pushes, maybe Will Campbell, Will Johnson, maybe Mason Graham. I mean, really what's hurting the Bears is you pretty much have 2 quarterbacks that are worth being taken in the top 10. And they're not, these aren't the quarterbacks we saw last year with Caleb and Jaden and May. Even now, with Bo Nix's success, it's Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, and it's Travis Hunter near the top, and it's Abdul Carter near the top. Mason Graham will probably go in the top 5. And then you got a bunch of unknowns, in my opinion, like, the kid from Arizona, Tataria McMillan.
Oh, McMillan.
Everyone thought he was going to be a top 10 pick. Dude, he might fall to the back end of the first round. Like, it's crazy how this draft has so many questions still.
Yeah, I think just based on the way, you have Ekpika from Ohio State in there, Burden from Missouri. Really, there's not that many wide receivers either, which is kind of shocking. I feel like it's kind of a weak year in that regard. Yeah, you can call Travis Hunter a wideout. I don't even know what he wants to be this year. That's he did the combine as a corner, I believe, correct? I think that's what he's doing this week.
I think that's what he wants to do this week. But he also say he wants to 100% play wide receiver too or something. I don't know. He feels like a New England pick though. Doesn't he?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else. I could definitely see, we're talking about Will Campbell. If he doesn't get picked, I could see him going as high as 4. If, he has the right mindset there with, anchoring that line and getting Drake May the coverage that he needs. It's just there's so many questions. I mean, like you mentioned, Genty going, in the top 10, do the Saints look at him as Kamara's replacement? Do the Panthers jump in and say, Jonathan Brooks tore his ACL twice. We don't want him. We need to find somebody else. to run the ball for us if we don't think Chuba Hubbard's the long-term answer. Will Johnson, I mean, the Raiders do a bunch of dumb things in the draft every year. Maybe they won't now that they have Tom Brady and Pete Carroll. But, I mean, there's so many unknowns because there's so many teams that are ahead of where the Bears are at that, frankly, have made a lot of really dumb draft decisions in the past. And you have to wonder, have
Yes.
they learned from their mistakes? Or are we going to see something completely off the reservation that we're not expecting, and the Bears are going to be able to reap the benefits of one of those situations? I mean, we're going to find out in a couple months, but it's like you said, between the unknowns, there's a fine line between, okay, does the league and the staffs believe those are sure things, and then how much variation is there with all of those unknowns in where they're on everyone's big board? Because for all we know, they could not be at all alike.
Yeah. Well, and players are going to rise too. I mean, we already seen it today with Stewart. Stewart's been the hot. Him and Pearson been the hot names right now from the combine. You know, Pierce running that. What was it? What do you have in the 40 today? He had some really
Something
good number.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, really good number. And you know, it's that comment we had up there. Dennis Allen, Ryan Poles really like Shamir Stewart. I mean, I can see it too. Like, you know, you look at most mock drafts right now, he is anywhere, I think, like 28 to like 16, 17. Probably you do a mock draft, you look at a mock draft tomorrow, I bet you'll find mock drafts of him to the Bears. I think he's going to be right there on the radar. I think he's going to be the talk. I think we're going to leave the combine. We're going to say the Bears have probably 6 or 7 options that they're really going to like. And I would say, you know, 3-3, 4-3, depends, you know.
If it's 6 or 7 options, trade back. Like, get some collateral.
Yeah, but who's going to come up? Who's the team going to come up for? Genty? I mean,
maybe.
Yeah,
Cowboys.
I mean, like
Cowboys are sitting a couple back. You throw a second rounder.
Yeah, but that's it's kind of the issue we're talking about. It's like what Schefter said. I mean, you could draft a guy at 10 that's just as valuable at 35. Like,
right.
Last year, what benefited the Bears to get Rome Odunze was the Falcons took Michael Penix. I mean, teams there was talent to trade up. This year's draft, I don't know, man. It's a tough one. And like, you know, like another comment with Pierce said the 4-4-7. If team falls in love with him, do they trade up? But I think it's safe to say, like, we could probably narrow it down after this combine. I would feel good about 6 or 7 guys. I do it every year. I release a big board, like of the 6 to 8 guys I think you should really pay attention to. And I think the last 2 years, Darnell Wright was on it, Rome Odunze was on it. They're obvious. This year it's gonna be tough. This year it's gonna be tough. So yeah, I don't know. That'll be interesting. I do think I also thought it was interesting. You know, Ryan Poles when they spoke on Tuesday, you know, a lot of it was GM talk. A lot of it was, you know, like you're not going to get a lot from that. He was asked, what was the question? I'm trying to find it here about the aggressiveness at the top of the free agent market.
Yep.
And they have a healthy cap situation. They have money to spend. Now is the time to go out and be aggressive with free agents on the offensive line, the defensive line. The issue is, where's that talent? Who is that game changer for you on the offensive line and defensive line? There's not much, man. And in terms of being aggressive, you know, I mean, he said, I think the clearer the vision, the more aggressive you can be, and that's important. You want to be selective in free agency because historically, if you look at it, it could tell you, and you can learn from that. You know, there's certain players that hit all the boxes, and the rest of the answer, you know, was, you know, there. But I'm curious what option they take because it's tough to find that game changer. But I do think they could find value. Maybe they could find a value in a guard or value in an edge rusher or defensive tackle. I don't know. It was a little interesting how he answered that to me.
Well, speaking of that,
Trey
Smith.
Yeah. That's
what the hell? A week ago, we're talking about how Trey Smith is not getting tagged by the Kansas City Chiefs.
I mean, are you shocked though?
Yes.
I wasn't shocked.
I am.
Here's the thing with it. here's what I kind of went through my thought process on this. Back what January, Trey Smith set to be a free agent. Bears need help. Everyone's connecting him to it. The cap number was not set. The cap going up by that much this year kind of hurt them. Also, star offensive linemen very rarely hit free agency. It just is what it is.
I know, but at the same time, this is very much a Chiefs team with not much room to maneuver at all.
Yeah.
When it comes to that cap, even with the increase, I truly don't know where they're going to get this figured out, because they have to pay Travis Kelce. That's a lot of money. I mean, his cap hit this year is $19.8 million for Travis Kelce. He's 36 now. Is that what he is? Yeah, 36 years old. And now you're paying top 5 guard money, offensive line, because guards and tackles are somehow all grouped together.
Yeah.
To I don't get that, but anyway, to Trey Smith, and as it stands right now, I mean the base salary cap is 279, correct? That's
I
what it's
believe
at.
so. Yes, it's another record setting.
So based on that number, and I know there's tons that can obviously be done, but the effective cap space that the Chiefs have, and this does not include Trey Smith's number, is $2.2 million in cap space.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
is this a move to be able to facilitate a trade so they get something back for him? That's kind of what I'm thinking is the mindset here for the Chiefs. That, I mean, you don't go from, no, we're not gonna, go and franchise tag our all-pro guard, to, oh yeah, we're gonna franchise tag him and we're gonna work out a long-term deal. I don't think that there's a way for them to do this without having some serious ramification to what their cap situation is, because not only do they only have 2.2 million to work with, they only have 50 players under contract right now.
So
I mean, they've got a lot of room to grow in regards to that roster number.
But so here's the thing. The cap can be a myth a lot of times.
I know.
It can be. So, dude, I've been studying this cap stuff for every time I look at it, I'm like, man, the Saints are just never going to, like, they're always negative. Like Green Bay was in
52 million under the cap.
Yeah, Green Bay was like in a situation like that. And I'm like, how do these teams get out? And in baseball, I know you hate this word, deferred money. Baseball is deferred money. The NFL, it's essentially, you can restructure contracts and convert them, into, you can convert them into signing bonus, like you said.
Yeah.
So there's ways to make money. They did move last year. L'Jarius Sneed, they tagged him and traded him to Tennessee during free agency.
Right.
I don't know. I think they're going to keep Trey Smith for the long term. But just reading here, it says one that they could do from Spotrax and Michael Giannetti. They can open up $10 million by converting Kelce's roster bonus into a signing bonus. And I bet you they'll probably they'll restructure Patrick Mahomes. They'll move some money. They'll find Chandler, maybe Chandler Jones. Oh, yeah, no, Chris Jones. I'm sorry, Chris Jones. Yeah, so they can free up. Here you go. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes roster bonus to a signing bonus, $25 million. Chris Jones can free up $12 million. But here's the thing, though. That's going to screw them. You're going to have to pay the piper. Like, you have to eventually pay it. And that's what kind of screwed the Bears, is when Ryan Poles came in and they had all these deals on money down the line, and Ryan Pace was just pushing money down the line, and he knew he was going to have to pay it, and he took the chance. Obviously, the Chiefs are in a better situation, but yeah, I don't know. I wasn't surprised. After watching what Vic Fangio did without blitzing, it's like the Chiefs let their best offensive lineman go. Something's you just can't do that with Patrick Mahomes. You can't do it with Patrick Mahomes.
Which I understand, and it's just it's just frustrating, because I think, meatball fan head, is thinking Trey Smith, Trey Smith,
Oh,
Trey Smith,
100%.
anchor, 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 and not like what's option two.
Well,
And we've talked about a couple of those names, that could be option two. Obviously Will Fries being probably the most obvious of the names, but he's coming off of a tibia fracture earlier in the 2024 season, and so if he doesn't fully heal, I mean, obviously he's still going to command a lot now, especially now with Trey Smith being off of the market. You could argue that he's probably the best guard available on the market as it stands right now. I'm
yep.
trying to think of who else is even out there that would even come close. Honestly, Tevin Jenkins probably could be said to be
Yeah.
one of the top options, which is nuts because
Well,
there's not much there, which is really, really concerning.
yeah. I mean, Will Fries is probably what the next top guard
Yeah,
out there. I'm trying to think, like Zietler from
he's
Detroit,
so
maybe.
old though. He's like
I know it just
35.
there's no like long time. It's a bad guard tackle. Beckman from Philadelphia, but like before that, dude, I mean, with New York, he was banged up. He couldn't stay healthy, couldn't stay on the field, wasn't
Right.
great. That's why, man, free agency is crucial. I
It's a
wonder, like,
minefield.
yeah, someone. I mean, I forget who it was. I think it was Jason Leisure asked Ryan Poles, "Would you prefer the draft before free agency, like NBA does, or would you?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I would too. I think it makes sense, but
I mean,
yeah,
when
I don't know,
when
man. They're,
Ronnie
they're stuck now.
Staley,
Oh
I
God, Ronnie Staley.
like Ronnie Staley's still around, and he's up there as one of the top options, and he's 31 years old at tackle.
Yeah,
I mean, Drew Dahlman, a lot of people have been pointing at the Bears as saying, that's Drew Dahlman's landing spot because the Bears clearly need a center. Trying to think who else here might even be in consideration. I mean, Cam Robinson was garbage after he got traded to the Vikings. That didn't work out. And then you have Alaric Jackson from the Rams, who is the left tackle for them, and maybe that's a guy that you bring in. But really, beyond that, there is nothing, like absolutely nothing, to what is out there. And so again, it just kind of circles back to again all these different names that you come up with in the draft. I honestly don't know what Ryan Poles has up his sleeve because again, like you mentioned, he talked about being aggressive, which frankly we haven't seen him really do
yeah.
during his time here. I think the most aggressive we saw him was with what was that defensive tackle, that three technique?
Oh yeah. Oh God.
Ogunjobi.
Yes, yes. And that
And
he
he ends up
brought in,
failing the
and
physical, and that's it. And then you really never hear anything again about him going out and like attacking right away, and the Bears coming up with like the big signing right at the top of free agency. And it makes me wonder now, again, is the mindset changing with Ben Johnson saying, no, like this is what's happening. This is what you need to go get me. Maybe it's even Dennis Allen saying this. If they want to go after maybe even the defensive side of the ball, they want to go after a Milton Williams to anchor the middle of the line with what the Eagles had going on. And they want to say, we need that as well. Or you're going after one of the edge rushers. There's a pretty healthy edge rusher market when it comes to, I mean, you have Josh Sweat, again, another Eagle. It
yeah.
seems like nothing but Eagles. Hassan Reddick, do you think he bounces back after his temper tantrum years of saying, pay me? Maybe again for cheap. A lot of, again, meatball fans, the Khalil Mack reunion, does that occur as just a stopgap solution? I don't think it's much different than, say, like bringing in a guy like Keenan Allen for a year and saying, other side of the ball. But does he bring that motor every single play? And the answer to that question is no, because we've
Yeah.
seen it before where
Yeah.
it can be very hit or miss. Um, I, it, there's just so many what ifs to like everything. And
Well,
the more I think about it now that Trey Smith is off the board, I just don't feel good about it.
It's not a great situation to be in.
No.
Like the only thing that can really save, I don't want to get like too doom, but like if
We're
what if they
already
trade
there.
for
Just
Miles?
go.
What if they trade for Miles Garrett? What if they trade for Jonathan Allen? I think
Oh,
that would kind of help the sting a little bit, but it also doesn't solve your offensive line issues, and that's where it could get rough. I think Ben Johnson would be a fantastic head coach, but I mean, look what he had in Detroit, man. Yeah, he doesn't have a Penei Sewell here. There's no Penei
no.
Sewell here, so it might make things a little difficult at first, but yeah, you're gonna have to get creative. Hopefully, they surprise us. I don't know. It's just it was terrible news today when that Trey Smith thing came up, and that really took a big target off the Bears, and now Ryan Poles has to trust his scouting, has to trust the values. Don't overpay for someone, and see if you can It doesn't even have to be like a star. Like if they ended up with a Ronnie Stanley or Stanley or a Will Fries, and they draft Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks or Josh Simmons. I don't think it's the end of the world, but
No.
at the same time, it's still, I mean, you need left guard, right guard, center. Unless if they go out and get Dahlman or Shelton, they keep Shelton. I don't know. I
Okay.
think
So scenario here.
yeah.
So let's say they go out and sign Will Fries.
Okay.
They go out and sign Drew Dahlman.
Okay.
So you got 2 of the spots cleared up.
Yep.
And then draft wise at 10, we'll call it. I don't think Josh Simmons is the right pick at 10. So we'll call Kelvin Banks Jr.
Okay.
So Kelvin Banks Jr. at 10. So that fills 3 of the 5 or 3 of the 4 that are musts.
That you need.
And you plug in that other guard spot as
I mean, who is
with
going
what
to
you
be?
have. Exactly. That's the question.
And Ryan
How
Bates?
confident do you feel about that lineup if that's the route the Bears take? Because then they focus elsewhere and maybe go out and splurge a little bit more on a defensive tackle or an edge like Josh Sweat to go and put somebody aside from our own Sweat.
Be a sweaty defense, man.
Yeah. I can see all the knockoff T-shirts in my head now.
Well, wait a minute. What did Eberflus used to say? The sweat effect. Remember, he used to call it the sweat effect. All right, that's a little weird. I don't think I'd feel good unless they traded for like a Myles Garrett. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't.
But how much draft capital is that going to cost you though? That's the question.
Cost you one of those seconds at least. You can't give up number 10.
2. I think it's going to cost 2 seconds.
I don't think you give up number 10. I think if you could get Myles Garrett for a 2, let's say a 2, another like day 3, and another 2 like next year, I think you should do that.
I just don't think it's enough. That's the problem. I think
what do you add in another? You think it'd be both 2s this year?
I think you're looking at probably both 2s this year and then next year like a 3rd. I mean, you got to remember. I know Khalil Mack was younger when that trade was made by 2 years, but that was 2 first-round picks plus the pick swap.
Well, I don't think they're going to get a first for him.
No, I don't think they are either.
Not a 10. Not at 10. They might get 28, 30, maybe. You know what I mean? Like a low first.
But I think that's why you need to think that that might cost you both seconds if you have a team willing to offer a first this year. Yeah. That you need to sweeten the pot, that you need to go in and make it a little bit more enticing. And I just don't know if, again, okay, so let's say this. Same scenario. They take those 2 second-round picks and they trade for Myles Garrett. Then do you consider all of this a success?
With that offensive line that you said?
Yes.
It'd make me feel better, but I don't think it'd be a success. Now it's hard because now you don't get Trey Smith. Now it's like I don't have a lot of confidence in this offense. And again, I don't want to be doomed, But I mean, I don't know. I guess if you let's say you draft Dolman, let's say Campbell falls. Let's say Campbell falls, you move him to guard, and you
So that's your
sign
3 interior, and you keep Braxton Jones on the left.
yes, Darnell Wright on the right. You sign Dahlman, Fries, draft Campbell. I'd feel better in that situation. They
Okay.
drafted Banks or Simmons, signed Dahlman, signed Fries. You're leaning on Ryan Bates or a second round pick. You know what I mean? If they got someone like Gray Zabel, feel a little more comfortable. You know, you could go, what if they went, Kelvin Banks, the next best interior offensive lineman, the best interior offensive lineman you could get in the second round. You sign Dahlman in front. The thing I keep going, do you trust Ryan Bates? That's kind of the issue.
No.
No. I mean, if he stays
I
healthy,
realize it was a dumb trade, but no.
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 I don't know. That's tough, man. It's again, I don't want to be all doomed, but like it's tough finding a scenario. And who knows? We could be doing this podcast in 9 months and we're like, wow, okay, Real Fries was the end. You know what I mean? Like some positive, but yeah, I still think offensive line, not a bold prediction, but offensive line probably still be the weakest unit on the roster going into week 1, unless they something cap casualty, something surprise. But that's why free agency dictates so much of this.
Right.
Free agency dictates a lot of this before the draft. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's some good value guards out there, like the comment is. I just, you take away Trey Smith and you're kind of like, okay, now what? Who's going to compete with Braxton?
You don't really have much of anybody.
Yeah.
Man, I don't want to see. I don't want to see Zeitler. I really don't, because I mean that's just a stopgap, and you're finding yourself probably in a year or 2 years to come back around. Like you said, Becton potentially being there. Like, there's just nothing else. Like literally nothing else. I don't know. You get a cheap guy, maybe Aaron Banks. I mean, that one of the other options with was he with the Niners, I think.
Yeah.
So I mean that's maybe one of your cheaper plays is, he's got the experience at starter, but I don't know. Like it just felt like such a good fit. And now the fit's not there. And it just it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. No, we'll see. I mean, this is all still got to play out. So,
right. Yeah. Well, last bit of news before we wrap things up here. Some very interesting things coming out of everybody's favorite topic when it comes to the Chicago Bears, the stadium. Arlington Heights. There's some more rumbling that is occurring, as Mayor Tom Hayes said that the team will soon submit important traffic and financial studies for the proposal of the Arlington Heights Stadium. We think things are heading in a very positive direction, quote, but there is certainly no done deal yet. I mean, if we're getting to more of the bread and butter of how this is actually all going to work out when there's already a train line running through the property, it's feeling like it's kind of leaning time for the suburbs for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what you and I have thought this whole thing. It just makes no sense to be downtown with a new stadium project. They got the land in Arlington Heights. The proposal they had was fantastic, way better than the city proposal. There's some obstacles, obviously, but sitting here, I mean, I'd still be shocked if it wasn't Arlington Heights. I think that news kind of today and, kind of reiterates that a little bit. I mean, I still think we're a little further away from that. I mean, Kevin Warren keeps saying they want shovels in the ground.
Shovels in the ground this year.
Yeah, this year. I don't know, man. We'll see. But I mean, would it shock you if they ended up in Chicago? I know it'd shock me.
Yeah, it shocked the heck out of me. I mean, the thing, I mean, just again, they need the state money. The state money's not coming. The Bears, meanwhile, coming to terms on the tax agreement with the village and schools in Arlington Heights. I mean, this just feels as though this was just like the next domino to fall. And I think honestly, probably around draft time, I think we're going to get a much clearer picture. I think this is going to happen pretty quickly. The fact that studies are about to be submitted, like
Yeah,
okay, like we're getting there.
yeah,
It's time for it to happen. So
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see if Kevin Warren is a man of his word, but that is where things are at. Always, yeah. I mean, they got to do it right if they
Oh
do it
yeah,
out there. I mean, they've got so much land to work with, and what some of the other teams in the NFL have done with similar setups. Honestly, Philadelphia, a great example. Arizona, a wonderful example as well with their entertainment district that they've built out. I mean, the proof is there that there is an opportunity for the Bears to build something that, frankly, all of Chicago sports is missing right
yes.
now.
We need something like
And there's nothing in baseball, there's nothing in basketball or hockey. I know that the United Center is trying to get something built around there, but let's be honest, it's not a great area of town. I'm not
that.
sure how quickly
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
going to be gentrified by any means, but Arlington Heights, sign me up.
yeah. And like Bears Junkie said, I mean, the fans deserve. They need a Bears town, like a Bears
Yep.
town type thing would be cool. Like we need something like that. I'd agree. Like, get out to Arlington Heights, just make it happen.
Yep. Give me a Bears Hall of Fame, like the whole thing,
Yeah,
like the Packers have up at Lambeau, and I will be
statues,
in heaven. I will,
restaurants,
whole thing.
all that stuff. Yeah, just it makes so much sense.
Yeah. But as we all know, common sense ain't so common these
Yeah,
days. So we'll see what
oh,
happens
this
in the
franchise.
months ahead. Yep, exactly. But that's going to do it here for the Bear Report podcast. Talking all things NFL Combine, free agency just around the corner, a little bit more than 2 weeks away. And we'll be diving into all the signings and everything else that is happening in the NFL. And hopefully the Bears making the right moves to get on the right track under the Ben Johnson regime. For Zack Pearson, I'm Steven Johnson. Thanks for hanging out with us and listening to this episode of the Bearfront Podcast or Bear Report podcast. We will be back next time with even more recaps and insight into what everything is happening with the Chicago Bears. So until then, take care.